Hey, ODs on Finance. This is Dr. Aaron Neufeld, co-founder and host of the video and podcast series. Today we have a really special guest, and that is Dr. Julie Phan. She's going to be talking about real estate investing, and she's going to go through the ins and outs of it. This was a live event originally, so there's a lot of live questions she's going to answer along the way during her presentation. So hope you really enjoy that. Before we get started, one quick announcement. The book, The Optometrist Guide to Financial Freedom, is out November 1st. It's available in paperback, Kindle, and Audible. And if you are a professor or run a private practice club or involved in anything finance related with the various optometry schools around the country, please let us know. Email us at odsonfinance@gmail.com. We want to give away about 3 to 5 books per school and have them used whatever way necessary. We also have a lecture template for this book, so if you want to use it in your practice management class or if you have some sort of finance class, we'd be happy to email that with you. But yes, we are giving them away. And the launch date is November 1st, and we are selling the books and also giving 10% of the proceeds to Vosh. We're really excited about that. So without further ado, enjoy the presentation by Julie.
And answer session. Just wanted full disclosure, I am not an expert in real estate investing. Everything I'm going to say is just based on my honest personal journey of investing in real estate. So I want to be transparent as possible. So, I'm not here to give legal or financial advice, but I will be as honest, transparent as I can in regards to my journey. So I'm going to have Aaron just ask me some questions, and then you guys can type and, ask questions that I can answer along. Okay, that's a great answer. Great question. So I started in 2017, just getting interested into it just because I wanted to, have a family. I wanted to be able to do something where I can put in little work in terms of me going to work and still have, passive income. And, the first thing that really popped in my mind is, I'm going to be a real estate agent or, rent houses in California. So at the end of 2017, I actually was looking into being a realtor. I don't know why. I think I was just really bored. My optometry businesses were, kind of moving along. We're doing well. So I wanted to look into California to invest in properties. And I realized that in California, home prices were just a lot higher. And I could probably afford it with a down payment. But when you think about rent, you won't cash flow as well. So I did a really quick search into, Google and found Bigger Pockets. And the goal of Bigger Pockets is to really, encourage and inspire new investors to look into real estate as a form of passive income. So, you essentially don't have to go to work. You don't have to be there 9 to 5, but you're still receiving, monthly income to essentially build your wealth. So my number one goal was to work less, but smarter, and then have other people generate income for me. So, that's the number one goal of course, real estate investing. You can invest in, of course, you can buy a property and flip it. That incurs a lot of risk, a lot of your time. You can buy stocks. Keep in mind, we do stocks as well. We were really heavily invested in our stocks. We max out on both my husband's 401k, IRAs and SEP IRAs. And, we have that, but then we want to be able to generate wealth. And the only way you can generate wealth is through asset and, wealth accumulation. And real estate just made it just so easy. So going back, the reason why I chose to forego investing in California was because the market was just too expensive. So I went to Bigger Pockets and I said, hey, I want to get into real estate investing. I have this much money. I'm definitely not a millionaire. I don't come from wealth. And I wanted to buy properties that are really low in cost and was able to rent me enough so I can cash flow. So I landed in multiple markets throughout the United States. Just one thing, I never took geography when I was in school. So I don't even know where on the map my properties are. Like they just completely skipped geography when I was in school. So I don't know I know where the states, I don't even know. So I invest in currently 5 states throughout the United States. And I think there's somewhere on the East Coast and in the Midwest. And all of the states I invest in have properties at a very low price, and they rent very well. So, so that was my number one reason, just to get into passive income. And the only way you can actually generate passive income is to have, your rents pay for your mortgage and have extra money aside to go into your bank. So that was my number one reason.
Yeah. And what states are you in, and how many properties do you have currently?
I currently have 7 properties. I purchased my property last year in January. So I started kind of really doing a lot of research at the end of 2017. Bought my first property when I got pregnant in 2018, early on, right when I got pregnant in beginning of last year. And I'm in 5 states. I'm in Memphis, Tennessee, Kansas City, Missouri, North Carolina, and Illinois. And I can only, sorry, I'm reading your question, Jim. I'll repeat it after. He wanted to know what was my main reason for investing in real estate, and essentially it's just for passive income and cash flow. So I'm in 5 states, Tennessee, North Carolina, Illinois, Kansas, and Missouri. And why did I choose those markets? They actually have the best price to rent ratio, meaning you're gonna get a home for dirt cheap. I mean, in California, you're looking at like a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom for like $400,000 and $500,000. I just bought a house a month and a half ago. I bought it for $32,000. It was a 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom. We're doing a full gut, adding new rooms, new bathroom, everything. And the whole entire rehab budget was going to be $37,000. So my whole entire budget is going to be about $67,000. And that's for a 3-bedroom, 1-bathroom once I remodel it. So all of these properties that I'm buying are really, really cheap. Which area is the most profitable? So it really depends. If you're looking for cash flow or you're looking for, solid, safe investment, I think I'm kind of right in the middle. You can go to, an area in Memphis and find a property for like $20,000 and it'll rent for like $700. That's like, the 2.5% rule, and you think you've achieved, the best thing in real estate. But when you think about it, when properties are that cheap, there's always the catch. It's either there's something wrong with the property or it's in a very undesirable neighborhood. So if you want to be the most profitable, you can go through those C and D class neighborhoods and invest in kind of the war zone and be a slumlord. I kind of want to be in the middle. I don't want to be too in the D class. I still want to be in a C class. I think they cash flow very well and they're most profitable. But then you don't want to be in like the A and B class, because the A and B class is going to give you more home buyers and your price is going to be so high you won't cash flow as well. So I like to be in like a B minus C plus area, because those are my blue collar tenants. They work at the hospital, they have good jobs, they're not gonna make a lot of money where they're gonna move and buy a house, but they're not gonna lose a job the next day. So you wanna be in a very solid tenant friendly neighborhood.
Can you just go over the A, B, C, and D classes for those that are...
Sure. So the A class is basically you're really wealthy, all the majority of the neighborhood are all homeowners. There's rarely any renters. So you don't want to buy property there because no one's going to rent from you. They'd rather buy a house. B class is a mix of homeowners and renters, and they're, they have more money. And the home prices in a B class is a little bit higher, and the rent, you're probably going to get like a 0.8% rule. And when I talk about the 0.8 to 0.1% rule is anytime you look at a purchase price, your rent you want to be at least 1% of your purchase price, including your rehab. So in a B class neighborhood, you can find a home for, let's say, $100,000 and it'll rent for $900, and that's a B class. A C class is where I like to invest. A C plus, B minus is you have a lot of tenants, not a lot of homeowners, a lot of tenants in that neighborhood, and they're making, good, solid money, and they're good people and they want to rent. They don't have enough money for a down payment to buy a house, so they're going to probably stay there and rent for the rest of their life. So that's where I want to be, in an area where my tenants will stay and they will not have enough money to buy a house. D class neighborhoods are essentially all renters, no homeowners. It's high crime, high turnover rate. poor tenant quality, but really, really cheap property, and the rents are still, about maybe a 1.8 to 2% rule. I try to avoid it. There are a lot of investors that buy really cheap properties and do very well. Because I'm out of state, it just puts me at more of a risk to be in this type of neighborhood. So I try to stay in the C plus, B minus areas. I think being around universities, I think I'm just answering Deanna, universities it's great. You'll have a lot of, good, solid renters, students, but the only thing about them is, they'll vacate every maybe 2, 3, or 4 years. You'll have to find another tenant. But as long as you put that in your your reserves, about vacancy reserves, and you'll know you have to turn that property around every 3 or 4 years, you should be fine. So we haven't invested in near universities yet, but we do want to. I feel like those properties, should rent very well. We just don't have any properties near that area.
Would you have any concern with, additional insurance and liabilities being, with college students or anything of that nature, trashing the house and different?
Yeah, I was a college student, and just to let everyone know, when I went to UCLA, I actually didn't pay rent for like 3 months. I got evicted. I was the worst tenant in the world. I trashed my place. There was a hole in my wall, and my property manager was so nice. She never kicked me out. She took me to eviction court. I ended up paying like $2,000 to like not lose my apartment, and because it was hard. I didn't have any money outside of my student loans to work, so I had to work to make ends meet and pay for a really expensive housing at UCLA. So, with students, you're gonna be prone to them maybe not be able to make the rent. They have usually a co-signer like their parents, and they don't have a steady income, so there are always that risk as well too. Them trashing the place, you're gonna turn it anyways. If you're gonna turn the place, you're gonna put new paint, you're gonna clean the carpet and clean the floor. So all of those things you're gonna wanna do anyways, even if they weren't, a student renter. So you'll put those reserves aside every single month when they're renting, so that when it's time to turn the property, you already have that much aside to turn the property without really dipping into your personal funds. Yeah, yes, for sure. So number one is cash flow. The number one thing for real estate investing should always be cash flow. You should never invest based on assumption of appreciation. Appreciation is assumed, but it's never guaranteed. So when you invest, when you have cash flow, all your cash flow essentially is going to be, because it's a passive income, it gets taxed differently. So essentially the tax saving is actually also money in your pocket as well too. So one thing about real estate investing that a lot of people don't know about is called depreciation. So depreciation essentially is like magic, because it actually puts money in your pocket without you knowing it. So how depreciation works is, let's say I buy a property cash for $100,000 in 2019, and I bought it in January. The IRS allows you to depreciate that property over 27 and a half years, or 3.6% of the value. So for that entire year, you can calculate a loss of $3,600 of your income. So let's say that year you made about, $5,000 in rental income for this one property after expenses, etc. And then after depreciation, you're subtracting $3,600. So at the end of the day, you've only made your real estate income, what is that? $1,400. So you're not taxed at ordinary income, but you're taxed at capital gain. I think that's what it is. And your tax rate is essentially lower, and you're only paying tax on $1,400 versus $5,000 because of depreciation. So essentially you're actually making money in your pocket without you even knowing it. So you have your cash flow, you have your tax advantage by reducing your net income based on depreciation. Secondly, if let's say that year you actually do depreciate more, or you have more expenses, all your loss from real estate actually falls and pass through your personal income. So let's say that year I made $100,000 and I'm in the 35% tax bracket. By all my loss, I can deduct up to about $25,000 a year. So now instead of being in a 35% tax bracket, I'm down to 75% tax bracket. So my tax rate is a lot less too. So, pass over lost income essentially from real estate investing will pass through your W-2 job into your personal income as a loss, reduce your tax bracket, and thus reducing your taxes that you pay to the IRS. So essentially, when you're looking at the big picture, you're paying less taxes overall, and you're also reducing your, reducing all of your taxes into your personal income as well too, not only from your investment side, but also your personal income. Now, the question is, a lot of people think, okay, I'm never going to pay taxes. At the end of the day, once you sell your property, you're going to end up paying for it. But, this is another topic I can always ask, but you go into something called a 1031 exchange where you sell your property and then defer taxes even more further later on so that you'll essentially never pay taxes, because once you die, you pass it on to your children, and once you pass it on to your children, they don't pay taxes. So, essentially you just keep deferring taxes until, until something happens to you. So that's cash flow and tax advantage is the number one thing that why people invest in real estate.
Yeah, I think that's a really good summary of that. And then Michelle actually had a really good question. It was going to be my next question to you, and that is, how do you find property management? How do you assemble the team? Bigger Pockets always talks about the team, especially when you're investing out of state. So can you just go through that a little bit?
Sure. So I did this on my Instagram, and I'm essentially right now I'm looking into a new market. I'm getting out of Kansas City. I feel like the multifamily units in Kansas City, the ones that I like, are not in really good areas. So, I went to Bigger Pockets and I Googled multifamilies and see which cities had the best. So I'm going I literally just started Indianapolis, my search just last week. So when I want to go into a new city, the first thing I always advise any of my friends, investors, go to Bigger Pockets and introduce yourself. If you're not shy, you can say, hey, I'm Julie. I'm an out-of-state investor from California. I'm looking for multifamily in Indianapolis that is cash flowing in a good neighborhood. Where are my realtors and where are my property manager? Send me like a direct message, so that's the easiest thing that you can do is just introduce yourself. Let's say you're shy and you don't want to do that. You don't want to put yourself out there. That's fine. You can go to Bigger Pockets and search property manager Memphis, Tennessee, or a property manager Indianapolis, and there will be a bunch of other new real estate investors like myself that have asked those questions in the recent past. And all you have to do is look at all those names that say, hey, I'm a property manager, I'm a realtor, I'm a contractor, give me a call, I'll go ahead and help you. And then you have these 5 names, and I seriously just copy and paste the same message to like 5-10 real estate property managers, and I just wait. It's like you throw a big gigantic net and you just wait to see who actually responds back to you. And I just did this experiment last week and I posted on my Instagram. I sent 7 property managers and realtor requests on Bigger Pockets and Facebook, and I think 4 got back to me, and I've spoken to 4 of them on the phone. So now in Indianapolis, I have 3 realtors working for me, and 2 property managers, and both of them have contractors. So now I have already built my team, which of course I'm going to vet, just make sure that they are good at what they do, etc. But I already have a basis of who can help me source the deals and, go out for bids and also rent out the properties for me. So essentially the hardest part is to actually take action. Once you put your name out there and start, asking the right questions, it's going to come to you. You have to really be proactive when it comes to real estate investing, especially when it comes to out of state. My realtor is amazing. I have like all 5 realtors are great in all 5 states, and my property manager, property manager, contractor, I would just call them. They are very cell phone. I just got off the phone with my realtor. We just she just sent me another property just last week, and she called me like an hour ago and say, hey, I got something to tell you. This house, there's so much things we have to do, there are all these, and she did a video walkthrough. She's going to send me photos. I sent my contractors out there, so once they're physically there, they will take photos for you. They will do everything in your best interest to make sure that you're going to purchase a good rental property, good investment property, because at the end of the day, they still want your repeat business. So, as long as you form a trustworthy, solid team, and do your proper due diligence, you should be safe investing out of state.
Okay. And Deanna has a good question. She's talking about rehab. So if you can just go through the basics of rehab, and then her question is, how do you know when it's going to be too much for rehab?
Okay, so the first thing, anytime my realtor sends me something, the first thing I ask her is are there any disclosures? Usually when it's on the MLS, usually they'll disclose like mold, or like the roof is falling apart, or there's foundation issue. Once those things come about, I'm like, I don't want to deal with it. That's too much work, especially for, an out-of-state investor. Secondly, if, for example, it's on the market for a really long time, if it's on the market for more than a month, I already know there's something wrong with it, whether it be a really bad area or whether there's a lot of work. So usually if there's a good property, an investor will snatch it right away. Usually all my properties I have, I put an offer within the next day. So looking at, let's say there's no mold, no foundation issue, cosmetically, flooring, paint, bathroom remodel, kitchen remodel, in my areas that I invest are usually less than $15,000. Once you add roof and HVAC, they're about another $5,000 to $10,000 each. So let's say you're only doing cosmetic, I would guess less than $20,000 for a full cosmetic overhaul. And anytime you go into the big ticket items like the roof and the HVAC, it's going to cost another $5,000 to $10,000. So I kind of have an idea, as long as there's no major plumbing, electrical, duct issues, then my rehab budget is usually less than $30,000.
Okay. And got a question from Kim.
So how do I protect myself from lawsuits? So the number one protection from a lawsuit is, of course, people say is getting an LLC and protecting yourself by going through a legal entity. So I do have a legal entity. I do have an LLC when I started investing in real estate. Hello? 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 Okay, so let me see if you can call me again. I pick up all of my, what was I saying? My properties in my personal. Okay, can you guys hear me still? Can you guys hear me still? Okay, so I put all my properties in my personal name. The reason why is you can have up to 10 personal properties, properties, in your name to get a conventional loan. They can anything after 10 loans, you go into commercial financing. So commercial financing is a little bit more expensive. It's rare that they have a 30-year fixed. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Am I still fading in and out? Okay, so once you go into commercial lending, you're gonna pay more interest rate. They're gonna be, a balloon in 5 or 10 years, so you have to pay off the loan. So I want to be able to get my first 10 properties under conventional financing, so that way I can pay less rates, more favorable terms. So all of my properties are within my personal name, but I do have an LLC where I deposit my funds into. Now, there's a debate on Bigger Pockets where you should get an LLC and put all your properties under your LLC, and there's the other half that says an LLC doesn't matter, because if they want to sue you, they're going to be able to pierce that legal veil and find who you are and get your personal asset anyway. So what I have is I have an umbrella policy, which is $1 million over all of my entire property. That's above my property insurance. So my property insurance is $1 million. So let's say I get sued for $1 million, my property insurance will handle it. Let's say I get sued for $1.5 million, then my property insurance will take $1 million, and then my umbrella will cover the other 500,000. I did speak to my insurance agent, and she says, in her career, it is rare that anybody has ever sued for more than $1 million. So I'm just taking my chances and just keeping it for now in my personal name. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Okay.
Okay, awesome. But once I get into commercial, once I get into multifamilies, I'm going to put them all into an LLC, just because once you have more than 4 units, if you have 5 units, it has to go under a commercial loan. So anything less than 5 units, 4 units maximum, you can use conventional financing. And then once I do commercial, then you have to get an LLC, because I only will lend to an LLC anyways. Yeah, so the BRRRR method, so the full name is buy. You want to buy distressed, and you want to buy a house that you can add value. A distressed property, you want to rehab it to force it and add value to the property or appreciate it. Then you want to rent it. So rent it for 1% rule or 1.5% rule, and then refinance it, do a cash out refinance, and then you want to also repeat the process and do it all over again with the next property. So for example, the purpose of the BRRRR strategy is to pay everything out. Either you can pay all of it out cash with the purchase price, and then pay cash for the rehab. And once you rehab it, it's going to appraise for much more, just because you forced, you added value to the property. And once it's rented, you'll go to the lender, and the lender will go and send an appraisal out to your property. And I just ordered 2 appraisals out just this week, and they're going to go to the property once it's fully rehabbed, and they're going to give an appraisal out for that value of that house. So currently the property that I've been working on now, I bought it for $30,000. It's $37,000 of rehab. So my all-in is $67,000, and it should appraise for about $110,000 minimum, maybe $100,000. So once everything is rehabbed, the lender will now give you 75% of, we call it a cash out refi, cash back of what it appraises for. So they'll give me back $75,000, and I only put in $67,000. And then now that $75,000 that they gave me as a cash out refinance becomes my loan, and it'll be amortized over a 30-year fixed conventional loan. Now, if I held the property for less than 6 months, they can only give me at maximum the amount I put in, which is $67,000. But if I hold the property after 6 months seasoning, then they can give me 75% amount of the appraised value, even if it's more than how much I put in. So let's say I would wait for 6 months and 1 day. If I put in $67,000, the bank will give me $75,000. So I essentially made a profit of $8,000 tax-free, because you don't get taxed on your equity. And so you have zero money in your property. You may pay a little bit for closing costs. And then, of course, the tenant that you have rented out is paying off your loan, and then you have cash flow from income from them. So that's the BRRRR strategy. So that's what I focus on. I like to buy distressed properties, rehab them, rent them, pull money out, take all that money, and repeat the process all over again with a new property.
All right, great. We got 3 questions here, Maria, CJ, and Deanna. Let's start with Maria, kind of related to what you're talking about. Are you purchasing the materials for the rehab, and are you getting contractors to look at the properties before you purchase the property or after?
Okay, so I always have someone look at the property before I make an offer. You don't want to make an offer before someone's looked at the property. So once I get a property, my realtor will come out. She will come out with my contractor, and if they say this is great, I think we can do it, it's not going to cost a lot of work, then we'll go back and get an inspector to come out. Or I can put an offer example in contingent. I'll go back and put in an offer with a contingency on inspection. So I put an offer out, and the inspector comes out and gives me an inspection report. If anything in that inspection report was missed by my contractor, for example, like mold or foundation issue, and it wasn't included in my rehab and it makes me go over my budget, then I can just go back to the seller and say, hey, the inspection didn't come out favorably, I'm going to go ahead and back out of the deal. So to answer your question, always just have someone come out first, and then when you do purchase a property and you do put in an offer, make sure you have an inspection contingency. I would say at minimum 7 days, so you can have someone out there so you can do your due diligence. And if there's anything that you don't like, you can just back out and get your earnest money back. Oh, how am I purchasing the material for the rehab? So I buy all my properties cash. So for example, $30,000 cash, and I get my rehab, my contractor, and give me a bid of $30,000. That $30,000 will include material and labor, and I send it to escrow to pay for the property. When at close, escrow will send the seller $30,000 for their house, and then escrow will hold that $30,000 rehab in my escrow account and disperse it in percentage and in draws to my contractor. So all of the materials has already been prepaid for. So, you know, when they start the project, they'll take 25% to start or 50% to start. And when they get, when they're halfway, they'll take the other remaining draws. And at the end of the rehab, I'll have my property manager walk the property just to make sure everything was on the list, was taken care of. Once they checked it off, then I'll go ahead and let escrow know to release the final payment to my contractor, and then, you know, everything is completed. What I usually do is I go to like Menards or Home Depot, and I'll pick up my own flooring. I'll pick up my own vanity. I like to pick up my own vanity because I think some contractors just choose the most basic, really ugly vanity. And, you know, I just like to make sure I pick all my finishings, and then I'll send them a shopping cart. And that shopping cart will have a total like $6,500, including tax or shipping, and they will add that total to their rehab bid. So that way when they get all their money, you know, the material and what I want is already accounted for.
And then a serious question is, for conventional investment loans, how many percentage do you have to down, and what banks give you the best lending rates or are the best to work with?
Great question. So conventional financing, you can actually do for an investment loan, you can do 20%. You do not have to do 25%. So when I first started, I thought it was 25%. I have to come up with that because of the, I think that's a California thing. But the lenders that I've worked with were all 20%. However, when you do a cash out refinance, it is 25%, meaning a 75% of the appraised value. So 25% becomes your equity that you built in, and then 75% is the money that they cashed out for you that you can put back in your bank. So when it's a cash out refinance, it's 25%, which is your equity. And then, but if you do a down payment for an investment property, you can do as little as 20%.
All right. Any banks that you recommend or?
Yes. So the thing about real estate investing is there's two hurdles that you'll have to go through. When I first started investing, I didn't pay myself a W-2 salary. You know, I was, you know, 1099. I was incorporated, but I didn't really pay myself anything. So when you go to a conventional lender, you have to qualify on paper, meaning they have to look at your W-2 and say, okay, you make this much money. Can you afford this much house? Well, when I started, I couldn't afford anything because I paid myself like $10,000 or $30,000 a year. So I actually got rejected by 10, 20. I called so many lenders. I'm like, how could this be the stopping point to my real estate journey? Is I can't get lending. Like, what is going on? I make good money. You know, I'm an optometrist, but on paper, I don't make anything, you know? So if you are, now if let's say you are a 1099 employee and you don't have W-2 income to support, you know, financially on paper how much you make, then what you have to do is get a hard money lender or go through, you know, unconventional lending. For private lending, you can borrow it from friends or family, or essentially a hard money lender. And hard money lenders, their interest rate is a lot higher. They're usually about 7 to 10%, and you know, their terms are just they're not as favorable. As you have to pay like points, like 2.5% points and a processing fee. So it's a lot more expensive when you go that route. But if you're able to qualify financially on the W-2, then you can essentially, you know, find lending anywhere. The only catch, and I found this, I guess it took me a long time to figure this out, but when you invest in really inexpensive markets like Memphis and Kansas City, and these homes are like $20,000, $30,000, $40,000, $60,000, there's a lot of lenders out there that will not lend if the property value is less than $100,000. So your loan minimum has to be $75,000 for these conventional lenders to even lend to you. So what these investors do is they go to hard money lender, you know, which is of course more expensive. So what I did was, okay, I'm like, that there has to be a bank somewhere in the United States that lends lower than $50,000, because that's all my properties I'm buying is less than $50,000. So after, scouring the BRRRR website and the forum, etc., I have a lender that I work with that has no loan minimum. He has no loan minimum. He can lend any, I don't know how he makes money, and the interest rate is very fair. It's less than 5%. There's no points, you just pay your normal processing fee, appraisal fee, title fee, etc. And and I have another lender I work with that has a $50,000 loan minimum. So essentially, if you get a no, you just got to keep looking. No, you can't invest in real estate because you don't have a W-2. Well, there's another way. No, you can't buy this property because it's too cheap and we can't lend. Well, you have to find someone else. So I was able to have now three lenders that I work with, depending on which market I am in. They lend in all markets, all states, that can fund really cheap properties.
Okay.
My property managers, I pay them 8 to 10% a month.
There you go. Okay, that was excellent. And let's answer the other question. Do you think there will be more opportunities to buy properties as the economy slows?
Oh, when it goes down, you mean? Absolutely. When it goes down, you're going to get more foreclosures. People can't afford their homes. They're going to foreclose in their home. They're no longer going to be property owners. They're going to actually be now renters. So their home prices go down. You're going to have more renters in the market. You need more investors out there to buy these really dilapidated properties and fix them up to provide homes for these renters. So when the market goes down, make sure you have money handy, because it's going to be like a buying freeze for all the investors. Right now, I don't want to stop investing. I'm just going to go with the market, and I don't want to keep waiting until it crashes. If it crashes, I'll buy more. If it doesn't crash, I'll still buy. So these home prices that I'm buying in are so cheap that they really don't depreciate as much because they don't appreciate as much. So the risk of buying in really these markets is just not as high as buying a property in California, for example. Right now, it's the highest peak in California, and it'd be not a wise decision to buy an investment property now, because in the next 1 or 2 years it's speculated to go down. So in these other markets, you're safer when it's downturning, and you'll still cash flow very well, because you'll have a lot of tenants wanting to rent your properties when the market goes down.
Yeah.
Okay, let me answer this question. Can you get a conventional loan when you're going to rehab the property? It depends. So if the property is distressed, meaning it needs a new roof, it's leaking, it has foundation issue, there's no bathroom, there's no living area, a conventional lender will not give you a loan for that property. The property has to be in a livable, safe condition. So now let's say you buy a property that is, the roof is good, there's no leaking, the bathroom is good, everything is in good working order, you just need new paint and new carpet. Absolutely. The lender will lend it to you, and then you can go ahead and then rehab the property after with your own cash, for example. But let's say you want to get into a distressed property and you can't find conventional lending, then you either pay cash for the property, you can get a hard money lender, you can borrow from friends, you can partner up with an investor. So there's a lot of ways to, buy a cheap property without going to conventional lending. But if you do go into conventional lending, the property has to be in a livable, safe condition.
All right. That was a good question. How do you find areas to buy in?
So how I started was I mean, you guys can all do this. Go to BRRRR, type in best cities to invest in, and I honestly just chose cities, and that's why I'm in 5 different states. Like I said, don't even know where they are in the United States. I just go where the money is at, and if the money is no longer there, I will jump to another state. Hence, that's why I'm moving to Indianapolis for my multifamily. So choose a market that is tenant friendly. Landlord friendly. So meaning it's easy to evict a tenant. California is not a landlord friendly state. They're capping out on rent control. So that's not something that you want as a landlord, because as prices go up, you can't raise rent, which is going to reduce your cash flow. So somewhere that's landlord friendly, that has a low price to rent, meaning the price is low and the rent is high, and that has a good mix of tenant like renters in the area, and that it's a growing economy. You want a place that people are moving to, that there's jobs, there's schools, there's an area that you will see, a boom. Maybe it's a cheap property, but maybe 5 or 10 years down the road, it may appreciate some, where you can actually have cash flow and enjoy some sort of appreciation as well. So all the properties, all the areas that I'm in are basically that I chose it from the list that I found on Bigger Pockets. When I am actively searching for a property and I'm putting an offer in, I'm calling like 10 contractors to get out there and give me a bid. It takes a lot of my time. I'm doing it right before I go to work, when, my son is asleep, in between patients, like when I'm seeing a patient and they're walking out, another patient comes in, I'll check my text message and essentially just give a yes or no answer. And then during lunch, so I would spend I think if you count all the hours of the day, maybe like 4 to 5 hours on those days where I'm actively trying to put in an offer, getting bids in, just making sure I get this deal. And then once it's all, in, the offer's in, I purchased it, it's under my name and the contracts are out there, rehabbing the property, I probably just work 30 minutes a day. They'll send me pictures of my property being updated and I'll tell them I don't like that grout color, let's choose another grout color, or let's change the flooring color, or let's do this vanity. So it's just very, very little. But the first, when I do acquire a deal, it does take a lot of my time, because I want to make sure I do my due diligence and Sure. How do I pick specific zip codes? Well, the area, especially the areas that I invest in, it's very zip code and street specific, meaning if you go to one street, it's like a D-class neighborhood, and you walk to like 2 streets over, it's like a B plus C minus, neighborhood. So I just rely on my property manager. I'll send them a really good deal and I'm like, hey, what do you think about this property? And they're like, it's great. It's 6 blocks west of the war zone, and that's a good enough area where you can invest in. Or they're like, oh no, don't invest in this zip code. This is where, it's really trashy and I wouldn't even visit there at nighttime, so I'll avoid it. So I just rely on my realtors, my property managers, my contractors, because they work in that city all day long, so they'll know which area is safe and which is not for investors. And who's meeting my contractors at the property? My realtor will meet with my contractor. It's, I guess, by law that they have to be there to open the door for the contractors to give bid. But once I bought the house, it's my house, so there's a lockbox, and they can let themselves in to do projects and to finish their rehab. I don't pay commission for real estate agent. That the seller pays for them. So the realtor works for me and she gets her commission from the seller. And I find my property manager, real estate agent, contractor, if you go back to the video, I find them on Bigger Pockets, Facebook. Essentially, it's just a lot of connecting with other investors and, putting yourself out there and just asking who is available to help you. And there's going to be a lot of people that want to help. They want your business. Yeah, I would start with single family in a good neighborhood that doesn't require a lot of rehab. You can find one that's like almost done, that just need paint and flooring, and make it easy. Maybe like a $5,000 to $10,000 max rehab. So when you come across those type of deals, it's kind of hard to find, because usually at that price it's already at a retail price. You're not going to get as much cash flow, or a lot of value. It's not an add value much type of deal, but it's definitely still a cash flowing property, and the risk is a lot lower than you doing a full gut rehabbing and adding rooms and taking down walls and etc. So another option that a lot of investors turn to is called turnkey properties. So turnkey properties are properties that are fully rehab, meaning they have a new roof, new HVAC, water heater, new flooring, new paint, bathtub, everything. Everything is brand new, and it already has a tenant in place. So it's already cash flowing from day one. So let's say that property was $80,000, fully rehab, so you don't have to do anything. You essentially just buy the property. You can buy it cash. You can buy it with a conventional loan and put 20% down. So you can put $16,000 down plus another $3,000 or $4,000 for closing costs. So let's say you're in that property for about $20,000 for your cash. And let's say it'll rent for $950. So essentially you're over the 1% rule. You don't have to worry about rehabbing the property and finding a team. And you don't have to worry about, finding a tenant or a property manager because they're already in place. And you essentially just put $20,000 down and have a cash flowing property. So that's also another real estate investing route that some out in state investors like as well too, just because it's lower risk and it's very hands off.
All right, you got another question from Millie. I'll just let you read it. It's a longer question.
Okay. How do you look for a specific? Okay, so I like to be at about 1.5% rule. So if the property is all in, meaning my purchase is 30 and my rehab is 30, my all in is 60,000, I like to be about, $950 or $1,000 in rent ratio. Just because it will allow me better room for putting away reserves just in case something were to happen. And I put every single month, I'll put, in my imaginary cabinet, like 5% from my cash flow into vacancy, about 5% into maintenance, and 5% into the big X items like the roof and the HVAC, just in case 10 or 15 years down the road when those items need to be repaired, I already have reserves in place already. So it depends on what market you're in. If you're in an area that will have a lot of turnover, maybe your vacancy will be 10%, or if you had a lot of deferred maintenance, like the roof needs to be replaced in five years, then maybe your cap X reserve could be 10%, or if you're in an area where vacancy is low and you replace all the big ticket items, and you have really good quality renters, then you can put the reserve at a lower amount, 4%, 5%. So it really depends on your area. And property insurance is really cheap. All my property insurance is about $40 a month. And so I factor away property management, property insurance, vacancy, reserves, maintenance reserve, big ticket item reserves, and then the rest of it, and then my mortgage, and then the rest of it is my cash flow.
Okay. And I think CJ's got probably the most important question of it all. What's your return on investment and how does it compare to other investments?
Sure. So if I am doing a BRRRR property, my return on investment is infinite or 300%, meaning I don't have any money left in the property. I pulled all of it out after the cash out refinance, and it's generating me cash flow. So if you take the amount of cash flow a month, let's say $300 a month. This is after putting away reserves, okay? So before reserve will be $600 a month in cash flow. I usually take half of it and put it in reserves. And let's say 300 times 12, you have 3,600 divided by 0, that's infinite. So to answer your question, my total return I like to have is infinite. When you do a BRRRR type of strategy, meaning you have no money in the deal, but it's still cash flowing you money, you have an asset that may appreciate, and then you have also advantages in your taxes as well too. If you do end up leaving some money in the property because it didn't appraise as high as you expected, then you may have maybe $5,000 or $10,000. Even with that, the return of that is still more than $100,000. I mean, 100,000%. 100%. I'm sorry. So, but if you buy a turnkey property, meaning you pay 20% down, and that property is ready to be tenanted, it's tenanted already, and you're receiving cash flow, I like my return to be at least 15%. Cash on cash return, because anything less, I can just put that money in the stock market, so the stock market averages between 8 to 12%. So if I can get any more than 12%, then at least I can do that. But if it's less than 8%, then I rather just put it in the stock market. So that's where my cutoff is.
Reasonable. Yeah. And do you ever have any trouble with permits for rehab? And do the contractors handle all of that?
Yes, so it depends on what city you're in. Some cities are very tough where you have to get permits for everything, electrical, plumbing. Anytime you add new electrical box panels, plumbing, you'll need to have someone come out and just inspect it, or in addition to the room. But if other areas like Kansas City, for example, the permitting laws are not very strict, so they don't go in there, they don't inspect it. But if I do need a permit, my contractors will have permitting ability, and they'll go get permits from the city. And then they'll also charge me a fee. They'll be like, here's $200 to charge you for permitting fees, and then another $50 of my time to go get the permit. So you have to pay for them to get the permit as well as their time too. Are you talking to me?
No, here we go. Got a question. Yeah, we got a question.
Oh, okay.
How do you find contracts for 50 foot?
So most of my contractors I find through my property managers. So your property manager will know, a lot of contractors in the area, because they have to fix plumbing, like a tenant calls and like their toilet's not working. Well, guess what? They know a plumber, or like the roof is falling, that's leaking, the tenant's calling and the roof is leaking. And they have to, call the roofing guy. So your contractor and your property manager will actually have all your resources for you. So once I find a property and then my property manager says, hey, this is a good area, and I would say, I want someone coming out there to give me a bid, my property manager will call the contractor and then give me his phone number, and I will go ahead and contact them, and they'll go ahead and give me a bid. So I think in real estate, the greatest thing about real estate is there's so many connections. One person, they'll connect you with 3 other people, and those 3 other people connect you to 3 other people. And the hardest part is you just have to ask questions. Some people are just afraid to ask the right questions. You'll just have to ask questions, form connections, and then, everything is at your fingertips. And everybody wants your business. They want to work with you and have good, solid relationships. So as long as you form those connections, then you should have a good team in the areas that you invest in.
Cool. Any final thoughts on real estate investing to let people know?
I think it's great. I think that you don't have to have a lot of money to invest in real estate. There's so many ways creatively that you can invest in real estate. So let's say you wanted to buy a property, rent and rehab, and you don't have money. You can always partner up with, an investor that is in the area, and you can be, a private money lender and lend money and then get a percentage back, or you don't even do the BRRRR strategy, just buy a property that's, fully rehab tenanted, that you've properly vetted to make sure it's a good area with good tenant, and just put 20% down, which is $16,000 or $20,000, have cash flow, and there you go. You definitely don't need $50,000, $100,000, pay cash, have a contractor, have a team. You can just go the easy route. So there's a lot of ways that you can get into real estate investing, and it doesn't have to be in your own backyard. It doesn't have to be in Seattle or the Bay Area or, California. You could just be out of state, and that's the reason why I chose it, because it just made financial sense. Because again, my number one goal of real estate investing is cash flow, and that's going to provide me with passive income. Say that one more time.
Why don't you go ahead and plug OD's on Bigger Pockets, your group that you have, and then also the blog that you're going to start doing on our website, and then anything else that's going on related to your real estate.
Sure. So we have a Facebook page. It's called OD's on Bigger Pockets, and I manage it. So, I really want everyone to really be active in it. I try to post videos on Bigger Pockets to kind of get people, more educated about the real estate investing realm and not be so fearful. So if you guys have any questions on it, feel free to post questions. I know there's a ton of doctors out there that have multiple rental properties, and they're very experienced, much more experienced than I am. And you guys are lurking. You're not saying anything. I really encourage everyone to get out there and just be open and sharing what your experiences are, so other investors, new or experienced, can learn from it as well too. Secondly, I'm going to be blogging on the OD on Finance website. So I'll post, before and after photos, my, I guess my journey from buying that property, and then my husband, and getting it rented, all of that stuff. So I wanted to walk step by step through each property, and I'll be doing that on the on the Odeon Finance website. And then lastly, I have an Instagram page. It's called house_hustle. And the purpose of that is to really journey and document my entire journey of real estate investing, and when I pick up properties and what goes through my mind and what I think about, because I think just being transparent as an investor will help all you guys see that it is hard, it is easy, but it is very feasible as well too. So you can follow me on Instagram, and then you can always ask me questions, and I will always answer and give you my advice. I think Deanna wanted to know my thought on commercial properties. When you say commercial properties, I'm thinking you mean like buying a building and then renting it out to like commercial lease. I don't do it because I don't know anything about it. I only do what I know, and I don't know anything about commercial properties. My husband and I, we do own a private practice, and eventually we do want to buy out the whole entire building and, own the entire building. So we want to do that, but it's that's not my core focus for passive income at the moment. But that's definitely something I want to look into.
That was an awesome gag.
Thank you. Hopefully that was helpful. If you guys have any more questions, you can Facebook message me or like find me on Instagram or whatever, and I'd be happy to answer. I think it's getting really dark, so it's really hard to see me, but I was really, I had a really good time kind of sharing my experience. Hopefully you guys can, get riled up and look into investing in real estate, because have plan B. Optometry, another reason, number 2, why I invested in real estate is I don't want to be an optometrist for like 60 years. I wanted to do something different. So I hopefully want to inspire you guys that you can think outside the box and definitely still be an optometrist, because you want to make money and have a solid W-2 income, but fulfill that passion, whether it be real estate, selling stuff online or whatever it is that you do, to achieve financial freedom much faster.